Wow, long time no see. So you got accepted into a coding bootcamp. What's next? First and foremost, congratulations. You willingly made your life more difficult. It's gonna pay off though. So you've seen the title of this video already, top tips for... At this point, you've seen the title of the video and you want some more insight into those 4 tips for a better coding bootcamp experience. Let's talk about it. Alright, so the 4 tips that I have from my experience are breathe, take breaks, communicate, and Google better. Let's take a look at each one of those. First one is breathe. Congratulations, you actually got accepted into a coding program. That in and of itself is a milestone that you have to keep in mind when you advance through the program. Be very mindful to track your progress based on where you were last week. That way imposter syndrome goes out the window. So yeah, breathe. Really just anchor yourself in that moment that you, A, got accepted, and B, you're going to get smarter as the program goes along. It's gonna be difficult and you're gonna get through it, if you choose to. That and screen apnea is the thing. It's basically our breathing patterns change when we're on the computer, so our breath becomes more shallow. So we breathe like up top here at the top of the lungs, as opposed to just really getting like a full stomach's worth of breath. So yeah, be mindful to breathe properly when you're on the computer. It really just helps to anchor yourself in the present moment. Second tip is communicate. I think I'm going off track here. We're gonna roll with it. Communicate. So you're doing 3 branches of communication. You're learning how to talk to a computer. You're learning how to talk to yourself because you're learning such a new thing. You're learning how to talk to a computer. Like, that's pretty cool. And third thing, you're learning how to communicate what you learn to other people. A lot of communication going on. One practice that I personally picked up is that I will talk even if I don't know what I'm talking about. So if I'm learning something new and there's a new topic for today, let's take, for example, function pointers. You'll get to know that at some point. I will talk about the topic at hand and I'll ask questions, and I'll also try to elaborate or explain in my own words what function pointers do and how to incorporate them into a program. There are a lot of different ways to talk to computers. You know, you've got different programming language like Java, Python, C, Ruby, all these other things. And then when it comes to communicating with people, there are different ways to do that as well. One thing I will recommend is to communicate consistently, whether that be virtually or in person. From my personal experience, my cohort members and I, we hop in a Google Meet and we spend most of the day in there. If for whatever reason you don't feel comfortable with your cohort members, talking to them and whatnot, get yourself a whiteboard. It'll help a lot. Even if you do feel comfortable, get a whiteboard. It'll help so much. Keeping all of the communication up here in your head, it's a lot to keep track of. So I definitely recommend getting it down somewhere so that you can kind of see it out in the real world. So that is breathe and communicate. Next is take breaks. This is a big one for me that I actually neglected, and it's a simple one to forget, and yeah, no shame. I'm personally learning C, which is one of the steeper programming languages along the learning curve, so taking breaks for me was definitely really important. My first time around learning C, I actually did not take breaks, and it ended up being a huge contributor to my anxiety and just my overall stress levels. Like, I wouldn't leave the computer until I solved the problem. But the problem was I had to step away from the computer. For me, this is where imposter syndrome kicked in, because I would try to solve a problem for several hours during the day and I wouldn't budge, not knowing that A, the break is actually what I need to solve the problem. So even if I spend time away from the computer, that time is actually necessary towards solving the problem. That, and it also takes time to understand and digest questions and challenges and problems that we have. One thing that a few of my cohort members and I say is don't aim for the grade point average, aim for understanding. That way it can last longer. Seriously, take a break. Like, genuinely, seriously here, I'll forget to drink water sometimes, or I'll wake up and I'll just forget to eat. And it'll be like, I'll wake up at 9 and then it'll be 3 p.m. unbeknownst to me. And I look at the time and I'm like, I should probably go eat. So one tip for take breaks is to use Pomodoro. It's a time manager kind of app that I use, and basically here's how you use it. You can set an amount of time to work, let's say 45 minutes, and then you can set a time to take a break. That's the short break. We'll set it to 15 minutes. Depending on how many intervals you set, you can get a longer break after those intervals. So if I work and take 15-minute breaks for say 2 intervals, 2 hours, I can then get a longer break. It's really helpful for me because it helps me stay on track, and it also reminds me to take that break that I need and to go drink water and to go eat. Last tip is to Google better. You'll learn really quickly that Google has a lot of resources for you to explore. So if you're able to minimize the time that you spend on Google, you have more time to actually solve the problem. For this, I definitely recommend looking up how to Google, and it'll give you a set of like some instructions and some things you can type into Google. However, I'm going to give you the 2 to 3 things that I use personally when searching things on Google. 1, I want to keep the prompt really short. The shorter the better. I don't want it to be too complicated. Secondly, and this is specifically for coding things, I'll only use Tutorials Point, Geeks for Geeks, or Stack Overflow. If it's anything else, I don't really want it. That's a general rule I use. There are a few exceptions, but those are the consistent ones that I like. Blog posts about subjects are really cool too, because you'll get people that have gone through something similar and they've listed out in detail exactly what they've went through and how they went about solving the process, which is cool. I like that too. Third tip for that is to use double quotes whenever you're looking for something in particular. I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that and keeping my prompts really short. Oftentimes I'll find that whatever I'm looking for, it's on the first page, if not the first 3 links. Keep in mind, geniuses, I didn't learn all of this overnight. This came over time. These are also my personal practices, so while I hope that you pick it up, your mileage may vary with these as well. I can definitely say though that these 4 tips have aided in my success in the program. And I define success by my understanding of what I'm doing. So to wrap it up, we have Google better, communicate, breathe, and take breaks. These are the 4 tips I keep in mind for a better bootcamp experience. Ciao.